Sharecropping is a type of tenant farming or farming land owned by someone else. It was common in the American South from the late 1800s until the 1920s. In some types of tenant farming, an individual or a family pays rent to live in a home owned by a landowner, but also is paid a guaranteed wage for farming the surrounding land. In sharecropping, a landowner provides the sharecropper with housing, food, farming tools, and seeds. Sharecroppers then pay for these items by selling a share of the crops that they raise. One problem with sharecropping is that if the harvest is poor in a particular year, or if that landowner charges too much for farming supplies, a sharecropper may not be able to pay for those materials. Then the sharecropper might owe the farmer money at the end of the year and might need to borrow more money to continue working on that farm. Okay, so sharecropping is when you basically rent a piece of land from an owner and in turn, they will give you housing, food, tools, the seeds to plant, but then you have to pay them back for all of that. Okay. So if you have a bad crop or you don't do good, you are not going to have enough money to pay them back. So it's like an endless cycle sometimes, and they just end up in debt. So, and it's not free. The landowners don't do this like out of the kindness of their heart. They're going to charge you interest, which means that they're going to charge you a fee on top of what the cost of the machinery is. Okay, so they may say, okay, I will give you this machine for $100, but you owe me 10% interest. Okay, so then it's going to actually be $110, and it's just going to keep adding up. Okay, so it ends up costing a lot. Although some sharecroppers were white, sharecropping was common for newly freed African Americans in the South after the Civil War. While this system provided people who had no money or property a way to earn a living and to have a home, it also placed sharecroppers in a cycle of debt and dependence. Sharecroppers who could not get out of debt to the landowners were unable to look for work or other places to live. Okay, so most of the people who were sharecroppers were the now free slaves. Because remember, we talked about they didn't have any money, they didn't have any land, they didn't have any houses, they weren't educated. So the white people who were the landowners, they still needed people to work their land. So they basically said, okay, you can come here and we'll pay you and we will give you this stuff and then you'll sell the crops and then you'll pay us back. So it was still kind of like slavery a little bit, okay? Because they ended up in debt and then they couldn't leave. And if you tried to leave, it was a bad, bad consequence.